The crystal chandeliers above me sparkled like frozen stars, each facet catching the golden light and scattering it across the marble floors of Aurelio's, the kind of restaurant where a single appetizer cost more than my monthly rent. My fingers trembled slightly as I balanced the silver tray, the weight of expensive champagne flutes making my shoulders ache. 6 months into this job, and I still felt like an imposter among the silk dresses and tailored suits that populated these dining rooms every night. The scent of truffle oil and aged wine hung heavy in the air, mixing with the subtle perfume of old money and newer ambitions. My black server's uniform, simple, pressed, unremarkable, made me invisible here. That's what I'd learned. People like these didn't see the hands that served them. They saw through us, past us, around us. We were ghosts in black and white, moving between their conversations about summer homes in Positano and stock portfolios that could feed entire neighborhoods. I was exhausted, the kind of tired that settles into your bones after working doubles 4 days straight, after choosing between electricity and groceries, after lying awake wondering if this endless cycle of serving and smiling and disappearing was all my life would ever be. At 23, I felt ancient, worn, used up. Table 12 needs a refill, Marcus hissed as he passed me, his tray loaded with plates that probably cost more than my car. If I still had a car, I'd sold it 3 months ago. Table 12. I glanced toward the private section, the area we called the vault, reserved for guests who valued discretion more than display. The heavy velvet curtain was partially drawn, revealing only shadows and the occasional glint of silverware catching light. My heels clicked softly against the marble as I approached, practicing the pleasant but not too friendly expression we'd been trained to wear. The sound of my own breathing seemed too loud in my ears, competing with the soft jazz piano drifting from hidden speakers and the murmur of 100 expensive conversations happening simultaneously. I pushed through the curtain. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the absence of sound, but the weight of it. The way the air itself seemed to hold its breath. 3 men sat at the round table, but my eyes went immediately to him, the way a compass finds north, the way prey recognizes a predator. He sat with his back to the wall, of course he did, his posture deceptively relaxed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I'd earn in a year. But it was the details that made my pulse stutter. The way his dark hair was perfectly styled, yet somehow looked like he'd run his hands through it. The sharp line of his jaw, the olive-toned skin that suggested Mediterranean ancestry, and eyes. God, those eyes, so dark they appeared black in the dim light, tracking my every movement with an intensity that made my skin prickle. He couldn't have been more than 30, perhaps younger, beautiful in the way dangerous things often are. To his left sat a mountain of a man, bald head gleaming, shoulders broad enough to block out the light. His hand rested on the table, and I could see the slight bulge under his jacket. A gun. Definitely a gun. To the right, a leaner man with silver at his temples watched me with the calculating gaze of someone who assessed threats for a living. But it was him, the one in the center, who made the oxygen feel thin in my lungs. "Your champagne, gentlemen," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. I'd learned to hide the trembling, to bury the fear and the exhaustion, and the constant gnawing anxiety that I wasn't enough, would never be enough. I leaned forward to pour, hyper-aware of my movements, of the expensive bottle in my hands, of the way my heartbeat had become a drum in my ears. The golden liquid cascaded into the first glass, bubbles rising like tiny fireworks. That's when it happened. My shoe, these goddamn heels they made us wear, caught on the edge of the plush carpet. For one horrible, suspended moment, I felt myself pitching forward, the bottle slipping, the world tilting on its axis. I gasped, trying to catch myself, trying to save the champagne, trying to avoid the catastrophe blooming before me in slow motion. The bottle never hit the ground. Strong hands caught my waist, steadying me with a grip that was firm but not painful, pulling me upright with effortless strength. The champagne bottle was plucked from my grasp by the silver-haired man, who set it safely on the table while I stood frozen, my breath coming in short gasps, my face burning with humiliation. But I wasn't standing where I'd been. I was closer now, much closer, pulled into the space between his chair and the table. my hip almost touching his shoulder. The scent of him hit me like a physical force. Expensive cologne layered over something darker, something that reminded me of leather and smoke, and things I shouldn't want to know about. His hands were still on my waist. I could feel the heat of them through the thin fabric of my uniform, feel the strength in those fingers, the controlled power in his grip. Slowly, so slowly, I wondered if I'd imagined the fall altogether. He released me, his palms sliding away with a deliberacy that felt intentional. "Careful," he said, and his voice was exactly what I'd expected, and nothing like I'd prepared for. Low, accented with something European I couldn't quite place, and wrapped in a kind of authority that made it clear he was used to being obeyed. "These floors can be treacherous." I stepped back, my legs shaking, my hands fluttering uselessly at my sides. "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, that never happens. I'll get you another bottle immediately. There's no charge, of course, the bottle is fine." He cut through my panicked rambling with 3 words, his gaze never leaving my face. "You're fine." Was I? I didn't feel fine. I felt like every nerve ending in my body had been set on fire, like the air had become too thick to breathe, like the world had narrowed to just him and those impossible eyes studying me with an interest that made me want to run and stay in equal measure. "Thank you," I whispered, because what else could I say? I'll finish pouring." "No." The word was soft but absolute. "Antonio will pour. You should sit down. You're pale." Antonio, the silver-haired man, was already moving, taking over my duties with practiced efficiency, while the mountain of muscle watched me with an expression I couldn't read. "I can't sit down," I said, confusion cutting through the embarrassment. "I'm working. I need to sit." Not a request. Not a The beautiful man gestured to the empty chair beside him, and somehow, without consciously deciding to do so, I found myself sinking into it, my legs grateful for the reprieve even as my mind screamed that this was wrong, all wrong, that servers didn't sit with guests, that I'd be fired, that— "What's your name?" he asked, and the question felt loaded with more than simple curiosity. "Emma," I breathed, then caught myself. "Emma Hartley, sir." Something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, perhaps, or satisfaction. "Emma." He said it like he was testing the weight of it, the taste. "Italian?" "Irish, actually, on my mother's side." Why was I telling him this? Why was I still sitting here? "You're afraid." Not a question, an observation, delivered with the kind of certainty that suggested he'd made a study of fear, of how it looked on people's faces. "No, but the lie died on my tongue, because yes, I was afraid. Terrified, actually, though I couldn't articulate exactly why. It wasn't just the gun under the bodyguard's jacket, or the way these men commanded the space around them like generals surveying a battlefield. It was him. The way he looked at me like he could see through all my carefully constructed walls, past the pleasant server smile and the exhaustion I tried to hide, down to something deeper, something true. "You should be," he said quietly, and somehow that honesty was more unsettling than any threat. But not of me. Not tonight. The qualifier hung in the air between us. Not tonight. Implying there might be other nights, other circumstances where fear would be appropriate, expected even. "I should get back to work," I said, starting to rise. But his hand moved, not touching me, but raised in a gesture that somehow froze me in place. "How old are you, Emma Hartley?" 23. "And you work here every night?" "Most nights. Sometimes doubles." Why was I answering? Why couldn't I seem to find the strength to stand, to walk away, to return to the safety of invisibility? He leaned back in his chair, the movement casual, but I noticed how Antonio and the other man immediately shifted their attention, their posture changing subtly. Everything revolved around him, I realized. He was the sun, and everyone else existed in his orbit. "You're tired," he observed, and the acknowledgement of it, that someone had actually seen me, truly seen me, made something crack in my chest. "When did you last eat?" The question was so unexpected, so strangely intimate, that I answered without thinking. "This morning. Coffee and I think there was toast. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm not hungry. Another lie. And we both knew it. My stomach had been a hollow ache for hours, but I'd learned to ignore it, to push past it, to save the money for rent and bills and the endless parade of expenses that never seemed to stop. He said something in Italian, rapid, commanding, and Antonio disappeared through the curtain without a word. The large man remained, a silent sentinel, his eyes constantly scanning the room beyond our little bubble of privacy. I don't understand, I said, my voice small. What's happening? You're going to eat, he replied simply, and then you're going to tell me who hurt you. The words hit me like a slap. No one hurt me. I'm fine. You flinch when anyone moves too quickly. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You make yourself small, invisible. Each observation landed with surgical precision, cutting away at the defenses I'd spent years building. Someone taught you to be afraid. I'd like to know who. Tears burned behind my eyes, hot and unwelcome. I blinked them back furiously because I did not cry at work. I did not show weakness. I did not... His hand moved to the table near mine, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. Breathe, Emma. I did, dragging air into my lungs, forcing the tears back down, rebuilding the walls as quickly as he'd demolished them. Antonio returned with a plate, not leftovers or kitchen scraps, but a proper meal from the menu, steam rising from pasta and cream sauce with grilled chicken and vegetables that looked like edible art. He set it in front of me along with fresh silverware wrapped in a cloth napkin. I can't, I protested weakly. This isn't... I'm not a guest. I'll get in trouble. You won't. The certainty in his voice suggested he'd made it fact simply by declaring it. Eat. My stomach betrayed me with a low growl, and I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. Not quite a smile, but close. With shaking hands, I picked up the fork, aware of 3 sets of eyes watching me take the first bite. It was perfect. Of course it was perfect. Everything in this place was perfect except for me, the girl in the server's uniform who'd stumbled into something she didn't understand and couldn't escape. Better? He asked after I'd eaten several bites, and I nodded, not trusting my voice. Good. He lifted his champagne glass, studying the bubbles with apparent interest, but I could feel his attention on me still, that intense focus that never seemed to waver. Now tell me, Emma Hartley, have you ever been kissed? I choked on the pasta, coughing, heat flooding my face as Antonio discreetly handed me water. The question was so unexpected, so wildly inappropriate, that for a moment I couldn't process it. I started, then stopped, because what was it? Personal? Intrusive? True? That's not... Why would you... He waited, patient as a predator, letting me stumble through my mortification until finally, quietly, the truth emerged. No. The word hung in the air between us, an admission I'd never made to anyone, a vulnerability I'd kept hidden beneath layers of bravado and deflection. 23 years old, and I'd never been kissed, never been held, never been wanted in the way that counted. His eyes darkened, and something shifted in his expression, something possessive and hungry and barely contained. He leaned closer, close enough that I could see the individual lashes framing those midnight eyes, close enough that his cologne wrapped around me like smoke. Let's start slow, he whispered, and the promise in those words made every warning bell in my head scream in alarm and anticipation both. The restaurant blurred around me, the clink of silverware, the murmur of distant conversations, the soft jazz piano. All of it faded into white noise as his words settled into my bones. Let's start slow. What did that mean? What was I doing, sitting here with a man whose name I didn't even know, whose presence commanded the room like he owned it, whose bodyguards carried guns under their expensive jackets? I don't even know your name, I whispered, the words escaping before I could stop them. His lips curved, not quite a smile, but something close, something dangerous. Dante. He said it like a confession, like he was giving me something precious and terrible all at once. Dante Caruso. The name meant nothing to me, But I watched Antonio and the large man exchange a glance, saw the way they seemed to tense at hearing it spoken aloud, as if the name itself held power. As if I'd been given information that changed everything. I should really get back to work, I said, but my body refused to move, anchored by the weight of his attention and my own treacherous curiosity. You're trembling. Dante's voice had softened, losing some of its commanding edge. Are you afraid of me, Emma? Was I? Yes. No, I didn't know anymore. Fear and something else, something unnamed and dangerous, twisted together in my chest until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. I'm afraid of what you represent, I answered honestly, surprising myself. Men like you don't notice girls like me unless you want something. Perceptive. He leaned back, giving me space I hadn't realized I'd needed. You're right. I do want something. My heart hammered against my ribs. What? To see you again. The simplicity of it stunned me. Not money, not favors, not the things men usually wanted when they cornered vulnerable women in private dining rooms. Just to see me again. Why? The question came out broken, disbelieving. He studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes moving across my face like he was memorizing every detail, every imperfection. Because when you fell, you didn't scream. You didn't cry or make a scene. You tried to save the champagne bottle before you thought to save yourself. His jaw tightened. Because you're working yourself to death in a place that doesn't see you, and you deserve better. Because you've never been kissed, and that's... He paused, searching for words. That's unacceptable. Heat flooded my cheeks. I'm not some charity case, no. The word cracked through the air like a whip. You're not. Don't ever think that's what this is. Then what is this? I gestured between us, my hand shaking. You don't know me. I don't know you. In an hour, I'll just be another faceless server you'll forget. I won't forget. The certainty in his voice made it true simply by existing. I never forget anything, Emma, especially not this. Before I could respond, Marcus appeared at the curtain's edge, his eyes widening when he saw me sitting at the table. Emma, what are you... Mr. Chen is asking for you at table 6 and... She's occupied. Dante didn't raise his voice, but Marcus stopped mid-sentence, his face paling. Yes, sir. Of course, sir. Marcus vanished like smoke, and I stared at the space where he'd been, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. You can't do that, I said, finding my voice. I need this job. I can't afford to... You won't lose your job. Dante pulled out his phone, sleek, black, probably cost more than my monthly rent, and typed something quickly. Within seconds, another phone buzzed. The large man, his bodyguard, pulled it out, read the screen, and nodded once before disappearing through the curtain. What did you just do? Made a phone call. Dante pocketed his phone with the ease of someone who shaped the world with simple gestures. Your manager will receive a very generous tip tonight, along with a request that you be assigned to this section permanently. You'll get a raise. You'll work reasonable hours. And you'll never have to worry about losing this position because of me. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they terrified me. I don't want your money. It's not about what you want. His tone gentled, but the steel beneath remained. It's about what you need. There's a difference. You can't just buy my life. I'm not buying anything. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, those impossible eyes holding mine captive. I'm protecting what's mine. The possessiveness in that statement should have sent me running, should have triggered every self-preservation instinct I possessed. Instead, it ignited something low in my belly, something warm and terrifying and completely unwelcome. I'm not yours, I whispered. But the protest sounded weak even to my own ears. Not yet. He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face from beautiful to devastating. But you will be, Emma Hartley. We both know it. The arrogance should have angered me. Instead, I felt myself drawn toward it like a moth to a flame, knowing I'd burn but unable to look away. Finish your meal, Dante said, his tone shifting back to that commanding gentleness. Then I'm taking you home. What? No, I have 3 more hours on my shift. Not anymore. He glanced at his watch. Platinum, understated, Probably worth more than I'd earn in 5 years. It's late. You're exhausted. And I don't leave things I care about unprotected. You don't even know me. The frustration finally broke through, sharpening my voice. You can't just decide. I can. Simple, final. And I have. Fight me if you want, Emma. Push back. Say no. His eyes glittered with challenge. But we both know you won't, because he was right. And we both knew it. Some part of me, the tired, scared, lonely part I tried so hard to hide, wanted exactly what he was offering. Protection. Attention. The intoxicating feeling of being seen, being wanted, being claimed by someone who could make the world bend with a phone call. It was dangerous. It was probably insane, but God help me. I wanted it anyway. I finished the pasta in silence, each bite tasting like surrender. Dante watched me eat with the kind of focused attention that made me hyper-aware of every movement, every breath, every flutter of my pulse in my throat. Antonio returned at some point, exchanging quiet words in Italian with Dante that I couldn't understand, but felt in the changing atmosphere of the room. When I set down my fork, Dante stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. The large bodyguard materialized from beyond the curtain, as if summoned by thought alone. Come. Dante extended his hand to me, palm up, waiting. I stared at it. Those long fingers, the subtle scars on his knuckles that suggested violence in his past. The confident expectation that I would take what he offered. If I do this, I said slowly, if I let you take me home, what happens next? I make sure you get there safely. I get your number. And tomorrow I see you again. And then? His smile turned predatory. Then we start slow, exactly as I promised. I teach you what it feels like to be kissed, to be touched, to be worshipped the way you deserve. I show you what it means to be protected by someone who would burn the world down before letting harm come to you. The imagery was too much, too intense, too consuming, too real. You're insane. Probably. He didn't look bothered by the assessment. Your hand, Emma. This was the moment, the choice. I could refuse, could finish my shift, could go back to my small apartment and my empty life and pretend this night never happened. Or I could take his hand and step into something unknown and dangerous and utterly terrifying. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm, strong, possessive, and I felt the decision settle into my bones like fate. He pulled me gently to my feet, steadying me when my legs wobbled, his other hand going to my waist with a familiarity that should have been presumptuous, but felt inevitable instead. Good girl, he murmured. And the praise did something to me. Something that made my breath catch and my skin flush hot. We moved through the restaurant like royalty, or like a king and his claimed prize. Dante's hand never left the small of my back, a constant pressure that guided and possessed in equal measure. Conversations stopped as we passed. I felt eyes following us, felt the weight of speculation and curiosity and something that might have been fear from the other staff members. Marcus stood near the host stand, his expression carefully neutral as we approached. Emma, he said, then seemed to think better of whatever he'd planned to say. Have a good night. She will, Dante answered for me, and there was dark promise in those 2 words. The night air hit me like a shock when we stepped outside, cool and sharp after the restaurant's controlled climate. A black SUV waited at the curb, sleek, obviously armored, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. The large bodyguard moved ahead, opening the rear door with practiced efficiency while scanning the street with eyes that missed nothing. This is really happening, I breathed, the reality of it finally hitting me. Yes. Dante's hand tightened on my waist. Get in, Emma. I should have run. Should have thanked him for dinner and called an Uber and gone back to my safe, predictable, lonely life. Instead, I ducked into the SUV, sliding across leather seats so soft they felt like butter, into a space that smelled of expensive cologne and danger, and something darker I couldn't name. Dante followed, the door closing behind him with a solid thunk that sounded too much like a cell door locking. The privacy screen between us and the front seats was already up, cocooning us in intimate darkness, broken only by the soft glow of the city lights filtering through tinted windows. Address? He said simply, pulling out his phone. I gave it to him. My shabby apartment in a neighborhood he probably wouldn't visit without armed security. He typed it in without comment, without judgment. Though I saw Antonio glance at the screen from the driver's seat and exchange another look with the bodyguard in the passenger seat. The SUV pulled into traffic with the smooth power of a predator, and I found myself hyper-aware of Dante beside me. The heat of his body, the controlled power in his stillness, the way his attention never truly left me, even when he was looking at his phone. "Tell me about yourself," he said, pocketing the device and turning to face me fully. "Everything." There's not much to tell. I twisted my hands in my lap, nervous energy needing an outlet. "I work at Aurelio's. I have a small apartment. I don't really have family or friends. Just work, mostly." "No family at all?" The old wound throbbed. "My mom died when I was 19. Cancer. My dad." I swallowed hard. "He left before I was born." Dante's expression darkened. "And after your mother?" "Foster care for a bit, then aged out. Got the job at Aurelio's about 6 months ago. Been trying to save enough to maybe take some online classes, but I trailed off. The hopelessness of it settling over me like a familiar blanket. "But you're barely surviving," he finished, and the understanding in his voice made something crack in my chest. "I'm fine." I lied automatically. "No." He reached over, taking my chin gently between his thumb and forefinger, turning my face toward his. "You're not fine, Emma. You're drowning. But you're too proud to ask for help, too afraid to trust anyone who offers it." Tears threatened again, hot and unwelcome. "Please don't." "Shh." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, the touch so gentle it hurt. "I'm going to help you. Not because you asked, not because you need charity, but because I've decided you're mine, and I protect what's mine. You can't just decide that. I already have." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my face, his eyes holding mine with an intensity that stole my air. "Fight me if you want. Tell me no. Push me away. But know this, Emma Hartley, I don't lose. I don't give up. And I don't let go of things I want. Ever." The promise in those words terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. "What do you want from me?" "Everything." Simple. Devastating. True. Your trust, your time. Eventually, your heart. But we'll start slow, exactly as I promised. The SUV slowed, pulling up to my building, a shabby 4-story walk-up with peeling paint and a broken intercom that had been broken since I moved in. The contrast between this and Dante's world couldn't have been starker. He looked at the building, his jaw tightening, and I saw Antonio say something sharp in Italian from the front seat. Dante responded in kind, his tone brooking no argument, before turning back to me. "Tomorrow night," he said. "I'm taking you to dinner, somewhere private, just us. I work tomorrow night, not anymore." He pulled out his phone again. "What time is your shift?" 6 to midnight, but he was already typing. "You have tomorrow off, paid." "You can't keep doing this." "Yes, I can." He finished typing and pocketed the phone, then reached over, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with a tenderness that contrasted sharply with the command in his voice. 7 o'clock tomorrow. I'll pick you up here." "This is crazy," I whispered. "Yes." He leaned in, his lips brushing against my forehead in a kiss so chaste and yet so possessive it made my entire body shiver. "But you're not running, are you?" "No." God help me, I wasn't. The bodyguard opened my door, and Dante released me reluctantly, his hand trailing down my arm until only our fingertips touched. "Text me when you're safely inside," he said, and I realized he'd somehow gotten my number during the car ride. I checked my phone. There it was. A new contact simply labeled Dante with a message already waiting. "So I know you're safe. How did you—" "I have my ways." His smile was pure sin. "Now go, before I decide to come inside with you, and we definitely don't start slow." The heat in his eyes made my legs weak. I stumbled out of the SUV, my mind spinning, my body trembling with adrenaline and desire and fear all tangled together. The bodyguard handed me a business card, heavy cardstock with just a phone number embossed in black. "Emergency line," he said in a voice like gravel. "Anything happens, you call. Doesn't matter what time." I took it with shaking fingers, then practically ran to my building's entrance, my keys rattling as I fumbled with the lock. When I finally got inside and turned back, the SUV was still there, waiting, watching, protecting. I climbed the 4 flights to my apartment, my legs like jelly, my mind a whirlwind of everything that had just happened. Inside my tiny studio, barely bigger than Dante's SUV, I locked the door and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. My phone buzzed. Inside? I typed back with trembling fingers. Yes, 3 dots appeared immediately, then... Good. Sleep well, Emma. Tomorrow everything changes. I stared at the message until my vision blurred, until the words burned themselves into my retinas and my memory. Tomorrow everything changes. I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. I didn't sleep. How could I, when every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, those dark, consuming eyes that looked at me like I was something precious and breakable, and his all at once. The scent of his cologne seemed to linger on my skin, expensive and intoxicating, a reminder that the previous night hadn't been some fever dream conjured by exhaustion and loneliness. At 6 in the morning, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Good morning, Emma. Breakfast is being delivered at 7. Make sure you eat. I stared at the message, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. He was awake, thinking about me, making sure I ate. The casual dominance of it should have annoyed me, but instead, I found myself smiling at the screen like an idiot. You don't have to do that, I typed back. His response was immediate. I know. I want to. Humor me. At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a knock on my door. Through the peephole, I saw a delivery person holding bags from a brunch place I'd walked past 100 times, but never had the money to enter. My hands shook as I opened the door, accepting the food with a whispered thank you that probably sounded insane. Inside the bags, fresh croissants still warm from the oven, perfectly ripe strawberries, Greek yogurt with honey, fresh squeezed orange juice, and coffee from some Italian roaster I'd never heard of. Enough food for 3 people. A small card tucked inside simply read, "Eat all of it." I took a picture of the spread and sent it to him. This is too much. Nothing is too much for you. Eat, Emma. So I did, sitting cross-legged on my threadbare couch, tasting things I'd only ever served to other people. Each bite felt like an act of rebellion against the girl I'd been yesterday. The one who skipped meals to save money, who made herself invisible, who believed she deserved nothing more than survival. My phone rang at noon. Unknown number, but I knew who it was before I answered. Hello? Did you eat? Dante's voice slid through the phone line like warm honey, and I felt it in places I shouldn't. Yes, all of it. You're bossy. You know that? I heard the smile in his voice. You have no idea. What are you doing right now? Laundry. Very glamorous. I glanced at the pile of clothes waiting to be washed in the communal basement machines. Leave it. I can't just leave my laundry. Emma. The commanding tone made me fall silent. There's a car outside your building. Black sedan. The driver's name is Marco. He's going to take you shopping. Shopping? Dante, I don't need... Tonight you're having dinner with me. You need something that makes you feel beautiful. Before I could protest, he continued, This isn't charity. This isn't me trying to change you. This is me wanting to spoil you because I can. Because I want to. Because seeing you happy does something to me I don't fully understand yet. Let me do this. The vulnerability in that last sentence undid me. Okay, I whispered. Good girl. Those 2 words again, making heat pool low in my belly. Marco knows where to take you. Buy whatever you want. Don't look at price tags. I mean it, Emma. If I find out you bought the cheapest thing in the store, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? I asked, surprising myself with the flirtation in my voice. His laugh was dark and promising. The kind that involve me teaching you what happens when you don't follow my instructions. We'll save those lessons for later. Now go. Marco's waiting. He hung up before I could respond, and I stood there holding my phone, my entire body humming with anticipation and nerves, and something that felt dangerously close to excitement. Marco turned out to be a man in his 50s with kind eyes and the same watchful alertness I'd noticed in Dante's other security. The sedan was as luxurious as the SUV from last night, and Marco drove with the efficiency of someone who knew exactly where he was going. We ended up in a part of the city I'd never ventured into, where boutiques had names I couldn't pronounce, and the windows displayed dresses that looked like art. Marco opened my door, gesturing to a store with French script above the entrance. "Mr. Caruso has an account here," Marco said. "They're expecting you." Inside, a woman in her 40s with impeccable style and a warm smile greeted me like I was royalty. "Emma, we've been so excited to meet you. I'm Isabel." Mr. Caruso called ahead. "We have some pieces already pulled for you, but please, look around. Try on anything that speaks to you." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of silk and lace, of dresses that hugged curves I didn't know I had, of saleswomen who treated me like I mattered. Isabel had an eye for what worked, steering me toward pieces that made me look sophisticated but still like myself. Nothing too revealing, nothing that felt like a costume. I tried on a midnight blue dress that fell to just above my knees, with a neckline that hinted at my collarbone without being too low, and sleeves that skimmed my shoulders. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked elegant, beautiful even. "That's the one," Isabel said with satisfaction. "Mr. Caruso is going to lose his mind." My cheeks burned. "Is it that obvious?" Her smile turned knowing. "Sweetheart, I've been dressing women for 20 years. I know the look of a man who's completely obsessed. And Mr. Caruso, he's got it bad." She added shoes, delicate heels I could actually walk in, and somehow convinced me to try lingerie, though I protested that Dante wouldn't see it. Her response: "You'll know you're wearing it. That's what matters." When everything was bagged and ready, I caught sight of Isabel scanning items at the register. My curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced at the screen. My heart stopped. The dress alone was $3,000. The shoes, another $800. The lingerie set. I couldn't even process the numbers anymore. "I can't," I said, panic rising. "This is too much. I can't let him spend this much on—" "Emma." Isabel's voice was gentle but firm. "When a man like Dante Caruso wants to give you something, the kindest thing you can do is let him. Trust me on this." But it wasn't just about kindness. It was about power, about debt, about owing someone something I might not be able to repay. Still, I let Marco load the bags into the car, let him drive me back to my apartment, let myself float on the strange unreality of a day where a man I barely knew spent more on a single dress than I made in 2 months. Back home, I laid the dress on my bed, running my fingers over the fabric, still not quite believing it was mine. My phone buzzed. "Did you find something?" "Yes. It's beautiful. But Dante, the cost doesn't matter. Send me a picture. Of the dress? Of you in the dress. I want to see." My hands trembled as I changed, zipping up the dress with difficulty, arranging my hair, applying the minimal makeup I owned. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, phone in hand, and took a photo. Awkward and self-conscious, but trying. I sent it before I could overthink. 3 minutes of agonizing silence. Then my phone rang. "Cristo," Dante breathed when I answered, and the raw want in his voice made my knees weak. "Emma, you're too much?" I asked nervously. "Perfect. You're absolutely perfect." A pause, then darker. "I'm going to have a very hard time keeping my hands to myself tonight. Maybe I don't want you to keep your hands to yourself." The words escaped before I could stop them, bold and honest and terrifying. His sharp intake of breath told me I'd surprised him. "Careful, Dolcezza. You have no idea what you're asking for." "Then show me." My reflection stared back at me, this new version of Emma who was brave enough to flirt with a dangerous man, who wore $3,000 dresses, who maybe, possibly, could be wanted. "Tonight. Show me what starting slow means, Emma." "I'm 23 years old, and I've never been kissed. I've never been touched. I've never felt—" I struggled for words. "I've never felt what you make me feel. And I'm tired of being afraid, so show me, Dante. Teach me." The silence stretched so long I wondered if I'd gone too far, pushed too hard. Asked for too much. 7 o'clock, he finally said, his voice rough with barely controlled desire. Be ready, Emma, because tonight, everything changes. He ended the call, and I stood there in my beautiful dress, in my shabby apartment, feeling like I was standing on the edge of a cliff with nothing but Dante's promise to catch me if I fell. The afternoon crawled by with agonizing slowness. I washed my hair 3 times, trying to make it behave. I painted my nails with the single bottle of polish I owned, hands shaking so badly I had to redo them twice. I paced my tiny apartment, wearing a path in the cheap carpet, checking my phone every 30 seconds even though I knew it was only 6 o'clock, then 6:15, then 6:30. At 6:45, my phone buzzed with a message from Marco. Downstairs in 5 minutes. I grabbed the small purse Isabel had insisted I needed, checked my reflection one final time. The girl staring back at me looked confident and beautiful, and nothing like the exhausted server from last night, and headed down the stairs on trembling legs. The sedan waited at the curb, but this time, Marco wasn't alone. He stood by the rear door, and when he opened it, I saw Dante inside, and the breath left my lungs in a rush. He wore all black, dress shirt open at the collar, no tie, suit jacket that fit him like it had been made specifically for his body. Probably had been. His dark hair was styled with that artful carelessness that probably took effort, and when his eyes landed on me, they turned molten. Emma. He said my name like a prayer and a curse, reaching out to help me into the car with a hand that trembled slightly, the first crack in his controlled facade I'd seen. I slid in beside him, hyper-aware of every point where our bodies almost touched, of the heat radiating from him, of the way his cologne wrapped around me like a physical presence. You're stunning, he said quietly, his eyes moving over me with an intensity that felt like a caress. Absolutely stunning. The dress is beautiful. I'm not talking about the dress. His hand lifted, hovering near my face, waiting for permission. May I? I nodded, not trusting my voice, and his fingers cupped my jaw with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the hunger in his eyes. His thumb traced my cheekbone, my jawline, my bottom lip, and I shivered under his touch. Nervous? He asked. Terrified, I admitted. Good. He leaned closer, his lips brushing my ear. So am I. That confession, that this powerful, controlled man was nervous about me, made something settle in my chest. We were both standing on the same cliff, both about to fall. Marco drove us through the city as it transformed into a canvas of lights and shadows, eventually turning down a private road that led to a building I'd never noticed before. All glass and modern architecture, elegant and exclusive. Where are we? I asked, as Dante helped me from the car. My place. He kept my hand in his, leading me toward the entrance where another security guard nodded respectfully. I wanted privacy. Wanted you to feel safe. Just us tonight, Emma. No audience. No interruptions. The elevator rose smoothly, floor numbers climbing until we reached the penthouse. The doors opened directly into his apartment, and I stepped into a space that was somehow both intimidating and welcoming. Modern furniture and dark colors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, art on the walls that was probably worth more than my entire building. But it was the dining table that caught my attention. Set for 2 with candles already lit, soft music playing from hidden speakers, and the scent of something delicious wafting from the kitchen. You cooked? I asked, surprised. His smile was almost shy. I had it prepared. But yes, I'll serve. He trailed off, searching for words. I wanted this to be about us, not staff, not restaurants, just you and me. The intimacy of that statement made my heart race. This wasn't just dinner. This was a seduction, carefully planned, every detail considered. Dante pulled out my chair, his hand resting briefly on my bare shoulder as I sat, his touch leaving trails of fire on my skin. He served the first course himself, some delicate appetizer I couldn't name, and sat across from me, his eyes never leaving my face. Tell me something true, he said as we ate. Something you've never told anyone. I set down my fork, the question catching me off guard. Why? Because I want to know you, all of you. Not just the surface, not just the girl who serves champagne and apologizes for existing. The real Emma. The vulnerability in his voice gave me courage. I'm lonely, I said quietly. Not just alone. I've been alone most of my life, but lonely. Like there's this emptiness inside me that never goes away, no matter how many hours I work or how tired I make myself, like I'm disappearing, and no one would notice if I was gone. His jaw clenched, something dark and pained flashing through his eyes. I would notice. I notice everything about you, Emma. The way you hold yourself like you're trying not to take up space. The way you flinch when people raise their voices. The way you look at beautiful things like you're not allowed to want them. He reached across the table, taking my hand. You're allowed to want dolcezza. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to exist loudly and demand more from this world. Tears burned behind my eyes. And what do you want from me? Really? He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. I want to be the one who fills that emptiness. I want to teach you what it feels like to be cherished. I want to wake up every morning knowing you're safe and happy and mine. His eyes met mine, fierce and honest. I want everything, Emma, but I'll take whatever you're willing to give, as slowly as you need to give it. And what if I want to give you everything? The question hung between us, heavy with implication. Dante's eyes darkened to pure black. Slowly, deliberately, he stood, moving around the table until he was beside me, offering his hand. Then let's start with a kiss. My hand trembled as I placed it in his, and Dante pulled me gently to my feet, his other hand settling on my waist with a possessiveness that made my breath catch. The candlelight cast dancing shadows across his face, making him look both angelic and dangerous, like something out of a dark fairy tale, where the monster turns out to be the prince. Are you sure? He asked, his voice low and rough. Because once I kiss you, Emma, there's no going back. You'll be mine, completely. The declaration should have terrified me. Instead, it sent heat spiraling through my body, pooling low in my belly. I'm sure. He cupped my face with both hands, tilting my head up to meet his gaze. Then let me do this right. Let me make your first kiss something you'll remember forever. His lips brushed mine, feather light, barely there. A whisper of contact that made me whimper with need. He pulled back, his eyes searching mine, checking, always checking, making sure I wanted this as much as he did. More, I breathed, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. His smile was pure masculine satisfaction. Greedy girl. But he obliged, kissing me again, deeper this time, his mouth moving against mine with expert precision, teaching me the rhythm, showing me how to open for him, how to respond. It was nothing like I'd imagined. Books and movies made kissing seem simple, straightforward. But this was an entire language I didn't know. And Dante was a master linguist, coaxing responses from me I didn't know I could give. His tongue traced the seam of my lips, requesting entry. And when I opened for him, the world tilted on its axis. He tasted like wine, and something darker, something uniquely him, and I couldn't get enough. My hands moved from his shirt to his hair, threading through the dark strands, pulling him closer still. He groaned against my mouth, the sound vibrating through both our bodies, and his hand slid from my face to my waist, pulling me flush against him. I could feel every hard plane of his body, could feel the evidence of his desire pressing against my hip, could feel the tremor in his hands as he fought for control. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard, his forehead resting against mine, his eyes closed like he was in pain. Cristo, Emma, he muttered, his accent thicker now, roughened by desire. You're going to destroy me. I couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't articulate what that kiss had done to me, how it had awakened something I didn't know existed inside me. I know. He pressed a gentle kiss to my forehead, then my nose, then the corner of my mouth. Soft, sweet gestures that contrasted with the barely leashed hunger I could feel radiating from him. And I'm trying very hard to remember that, to go slow like I promised, but you make it difficult when you kiss me back like that. Like what? Like you're starving for it, like you've been waiting your whole life for someone to touch you properly. His hands tightened on my waist. It makes me want to give you everything all at once, consequences be damned. Before I could respond, His phone buzzed insistently from the table. He ignored it at first, but it buzzed again, then again, each vibration carrying an urgency that couldn't be dismissed. With a muttered curse in Italian, Dante released me reluctantly, checking the screen. His expression shifted instantly from desire to something colder, more dangerous. "I need to take this." He stepped away, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian in a tone that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Even without understanding the words, I could hear the threat in his voice, the barely controlled violence simmering beneath his controlled exterior. This was the other Dante, the one who commanded bodyguards with guns, who made restaurant managers and staff bend to his will with a single phone call, who moved through the world like a predator surveying his territory. I should have been terrified. Instead, I found myself fascinated, watching the way his body language changed, the way his free hand flexed like he wanted to wrap it around someone's throat. He ended the call with what sounded like a command, then stood with his back to me for a long moment, tension radiating from every line of his body. When he finally turned around, his expression had been carefully smoothed into neutrality, but his eyes still burned with banked fury. "I'm sorry," he said, coming back to me, his hands gentle despite the violence I'd heard in his voice moments before. "Business. Something that requires my attention." "What kind of business?" I asked, then immediately regretted it when his jaw tightened. "The kind I don't want you involved in." He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to the top of my head, the kind that exists in shadows and violence and things you should never have to see or know about. My heart hammered. Those men last night, the guns, the way people react to you." I trailed off, not sure how to ask if the man I was falling for was exactly as dangerous as I suspected. "Yes." Simple. Honest. Brutal. "I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done things that would horrify you. I exist in a world where mercy is weakness, and hesitation gets you killed. But with you..." His hands cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "With you, I want to be better. With you, I feel human again." The confession was raw, real, and it settled something in my chest. "I don't care what you've done. I care about who you are with me." "Stupidly brave girl." His thumb traced my bottom lip. "Don't you understand the danger you're in? Just by being near me, you've painted a target on your back. My enemies will know about you soon if they don't already. They'll try to use you against me, then protect me." I caught his wrist, holding his hand against my face. "You said you protect what's yours. So protect me, Dante. Teach me to survive in your world instead of hiding me from it." Something fierce and possessive flared in his eyes. "You have no idea what you're asking for." "Then show me." He studied me for a long moment, warring emotions playing across his face. Finally, he seemed to come to a decision. "Come with me." He led me through his apartment to a door I hadn't noticed before, pressing his palm against a biometric scanner. The door slid open, revealing a room that made my breath catch. An office, but more than that, a command center. Multiple screens lined one wall, showing various camera feeds. A desk dominated the center, covered in papers and files and electronics I couldn't identify. But it was the wall behind the desk that captured my attention. A map of the city marked with pins and notes, photographs of people I didn't recognize, and what looked disturbingly like surveillance photos. "This is what I do," Dante said quietly, standing behind me, his hands on my shoulders. "I control territories. I manage operations that exist outside the law. I make decisions that affect thousands of people, and not all of those decisions are clean or moral or right." He turned me to face him. "This is the world you're asking to be part of, Emma. Violence and danger and constant vigilance. Are you sure that's what you want?" I looked around the room again, really seeing it this time, the evidence of a criminal empire. The proof that Dante Caruso was exactly what I'd suspected. A mafia boss. A dangerous man. Someone who could have me killed with a phone call if he wanted. "I'm sure," I said. And I meant it. Because dangerous or not, criminal or not, this man had seen me when I was invisible, had fed me when I was hungry, had kissed me like I was precious. "But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't lie to me. Don't hide things to protect me. If I'm going to be in this world, I need to understand it. I need to know the rules, the dangers, the truth of who you are and what you do. Pride flickered in his eyes. Intelligent and brave, you never cease to amaze me, Dolcezza. He pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around me like bands of steel. I promise. No lies, no hiding, but you have to promise me something in return. What? That you'll trust me to keep you safe, that when I give you an order, and I will give you orders, Emma, you'll follow them without question. Because in my world, hesitation kills. Understanding? The dominance in his tone should have rankled, but instead it sent another spike of heat through me. I understand. Good. He kissed me again, harder this time, less controlled, his hand sliding down my back to my hips, pulling me against him with a hunger that made me dizzy. When he pulled back, his eyes were nearly black with desire. Now I need to deal with this situation. It shouldn't take long. An hour. Maybe 2. I want you to stay here where you're safe. Can't I come with you? Absolutely not. The refusal was immediate and non-negotiable. What I'm doing tonight, it's not something you need to witness. Not yet. Maybe not ever, if I can help it. Anxiety spiked through me. What are you going to do? His expression went cold, that predator surfacing again. Handle a problem. Someone who thinks they can steal from me and live to tell about it. His hand came up, gentle despite the violence in his words, tucking my hair behind my ear. Don't worry, Emma. I'll be back before you know it, and then we can continue what we started. He called for Antonio, who appeared within seconds, his expression carefully neutral, as Dante gave him instructions in rapid Italian. The only words I caught were my name, and what might have been, protect her with your life. Antonio will stay with you, Dante said, turning back to me. He's head of my personal security, and one of the few people I trust completely. Anything you need, anything at all, you tell him. I don't need a babysitter. Yes, you do. He kissed me again, quick and possessive. Because the moment I walk out that door, you become the most valuable thing in this city. My enemies will know by morning that Dante Caruso has found something he cares about, more than money or power or territory. That makes you leverage, Emma. That makes you a target. The reality of what I'd agreed to hit me like a freight train. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was real and dangerous. And I'd just willingly stepped into the crosshairs. Dante must have seen the fear in my eyes, because his expression softened. Hey, look at me. He waited until my gaze met his. I won't let anything happen to you. Ever. You're mine now, Emma Hartley. And I protect what's mine with everything I have. Do you believe me? Did I? This man I'd known for barely 24 hours. This beautiful, dangerous stranger who'd upended my entire life with a smile and a promise? Against all logic, all reason, all self-preservation instincts. Yes. I believed him. I believe you. Then trust me. One more kiss. This one achingly tender. I'll be back soon. Make yourself comfortable. There's a bedroom through that door if you want to rest. Kitchen's fully stocked if you're hungry. Antonio will be right outside if you need anything. He left with a swirl of his coat, and I heard him issuing orders in Italian as he moved toward the elevator, heard other voices responding. His security team, mobilizing for whatever violence was about to unfold in the shadows of the city. And I stood in the penthouse apartment of a mafia boss, wearing a $3,000 dress, my lips still tingling from my first kiss, wondering what the hell I'd gotten myself into. Antonio appeared in the doorway, his expression as unreadable as ever. Miss Emma, can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? Answers, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. I want to know exactly what kind of danger I'm in. I want to know what Dante's going to do tonight. And I want to know why he's so convinced I need protection. Antonio's lips twitched, almost a smile. The boss said you were smart, told me you'd start asking questions the moment he left. He gestured to the couch. Sit down, Miss Emma. This might take a while. I sat, and Antonio settled into the chair across from me, his posture alert, despite the casual position. For the next hour, he told me truths that should have sent me running. Dante Caruso wasn't just a mafia boss. He was the boss. The youngest man to ever control the city's underworld, having taken power at 25 after his father's assassination. He'd consolidated territories through a combination of strategic brutality and careful alliances, earning respect and fear in equal measure. He controlled everything from gambling and protection rackets to legitimate businesses that laundered money and provided cover for less legal operations. He was dangerous, ruthless, had killed men with his own hands when necessary and ordered deaths when it wasn't. His enemies were numerous, his allies temporary, his trust nearly impossible to earn. "But he's different with you," Antonio said, and something like wonder entered his voice. "In 5 years working for him, I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Never seen him lose control, show vulnerability, act without calculation. You've got him twisted up, Miss Emma, and that makes you both his greatest weakness and his most heavily guarded asset." "So I'm a weakness," I said numbly. "You're everything." Antonio leaned forward. "And that means every enemy he has will come for you eventually. Which is why you need to learn the rules. The first one, never go anywhere without security. Not the grocery store, not to work, nowhere. The second, if something feels wrong, trust that instinct and call for help immediately. The third," he paused, his eyes serious, "if someone ever takes you, if you're ever in real danger, know that Dante will burn the entire city to get you back. He'll start a war. He'll sacrifice everything. That's the kind of man he is when something belongs to him." The weight of that settled over me like a cloak, heavy, suffocating, and somehow comforting all at once. I wasn't just Dante's girlfriend or lover or whatever we were becoming. I was his obsession, his possession, his to protect and cherish and control. And God help me, I wanted to be exactly that. My phone buzzed with a message from Dante. "Everything okay?" I typed back, "Yes. Antonio's taking good care of me. Good. I'll be back in an hour. Miss you already, Dolcezza." Those 3 words, "miss you already," made my heart do something complicated. I sent back a heart emoji, immediately felt stupid for it, then saw his response. Adorable. "Can't wait to kiss you again." Heat flooded my cheeks and Antonio chuckled from his chair. He's got it bad. Never thought I'd see the day. The hour crawled by. Antonio told me more stories, sanitized versions probably, but enough to paint a picture of the man I was falling for. Dante, who paid for his soldiers' children's education. Dante, who'd personally hunted down a trafficker operating in his territory and made an example brutal enough that no one dared try it again. Dante, who donated anonymously to women's shelters and funded programs for at-risk youth, trying to prevent others from falling into the life he led. He was complicated, contradictory, capable of extreme violence and unexpected tenderness, a monster and a man, depending on who was looking. And I wanted all of him. The elevator dinged, and my heart leaped into my throat. Antonio was on his feet instantly, hand moving to his weapon, relaxing only when Dante stepped out. Alone. His jacket gone. His shirt sleeves rolled up, traces of what might have been blood on his knuckles. Our eyes met across the room, and something electric passed between us. Recognition. Desire. Belonging. He crossed to me in 3 long strides, pulling me up from the couch and into his arms, his mouth finding mine with desperate hunger. I tasted copper. Blood. Definitely blood. But I didn't care. I kissed him back with equal fervor, my hands clutching at his shirt, feeling the controlled power in his body, the tremor of adrenaline still working through his system. "You came back," I breathed when we broke apart. "Always." He cupped my face, his eyes searching mine. "I'll always come back to you, Emma, no matter what." His thumb brushed across my lips. "Antonio told you?" "Enough. And you're still here. Where else would I be?" I pressed my hand over his heart, feeling it thunder beneath my palm. "You're mine too, Dante Caruso, just like I'm yours." His expression transformed, fierce and possessive and almost vulnerable. "Say it again." "You're mine." He kissed me like a drowning man finding air, like I was the only solid thing in a world of chaos, like I was precious and perfect and his. When he pulled back, his eyes had gone nearly black with want. "Stay with me tonight," he said. And it wasn't quite a command, wasn't quite a request. "Sleep here. Let me hold you. Let me keep you safe. Okay, I whispered. And that single word felt like a vow, a promise, a point of no return. Everything had changed. Everything was changing still, and I was falling into the darkness with nothing but Dante's promise to catch me. Dante led me through the penthouse to his bedroom, a space that was somehow both masculine and inviting, all dark woods and soft fabrics, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city below. The bed dominated the room, massive and dressed in charcoal sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "I'll get you something to sleep in," he said, disappearing into what I assumed was a closet. He emerged with one of his dress shirts, black silk that would drown me, and handed it over with a tenderness that contrasted sharply with the violence I knew he'd committed just hours before. "The bathroom's through there," he gestured. "Take your time. I need to clean up." I changed in the bathroom, which was larger than my entire studio apartment, all marble and chrome and luxury I'd only ever seen in magazines. The shirt fell to mid-thigh on me, the silk cool against my heated skin, smelling of his cologne and something uniquely him. When I caught sight of myself in the mirror, hair mussed from his hands, lips swollen from his kisses, wearing his shirt like a claim, I barely recognized the girl staring back. This Emma was different, braver, wanted, claimed by a dangerous man who looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered in his violent world. When I emerged, Dante was sitting on the edge of the bed, his shirt discarded, wearing only dark sleep pants that hung low on his hips. My breath caught at the sight of him, the defined muscles of his chest and abdomen, the tattoos I hadn't known existed curling across his ribs and shoulder. And the scars. God. The scars. Evidence of a violent life, of battles fought and survived, of a darkness I was only beginning to understand. His eyes tracked me as I crossed the room, darkening with barely restrained hunger. "Come here." I went to him, standing between his knees, his hands settling on my waist, thumbs tracing the bare skin where the shirt had ridden up. "You're so beautiful," he murmured, his voice rough. "Do you have any idea what you do to me?" "Show me," I whispered, emboldened by the way he looked at me, by the power I felt in making this dangerous man tremble with want. "Emma." My name was a warning and a plea. "If I start, I'm not sure I can stop. And you deserve better than being rushed, being taken without the patience and care you need." "Then don't stop." My hands found his shoulders, feeling the coiled strength beneath my palms. "I trust you, Dante. Teach me. Show me everything." His control snapped with an almost audible crack. He pulled me down onto the bed, his body covering mine, his weight delicious and overwhelming. "You're sure?" he asked one more time, his eyes searching mine for any hint of doubt. "I've never been more sure of anything." He kissed me then, deep and consuming, his tongue exploring my mouth while his hands roamed over the silk covering my body, learning my curves, my responses, the places that made me gasp and arch into his touch. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, designed to build pleasure slowly, to teach my inexperienced body the language of desire. "Tell me if anything's too much," he murmured against my lips. "Tell me if you need me to slow down." But I didn't want slow anymore. I wanted everything he'd promised. The fire and the passion and the complete surrender to this thing building between us. My hands found his hair, pulling him closer, and he groaned against my mouth, his hips pressing against mine, letting me feel exactly how much he wanted me. His lips moved from my mouth to my jaw, to the sensitive spot below my ear that made me whimper. "So responsive," he breathed. "So perfect. Mine." "Yours," I agreed, the word coming out broken, needy, the night blurred into sensation, his hands, his mouth, his body teaching mine things I'd never imagined. He was patient and demanding in equal measure, controlling my pleasure with expert precision, building me up until I was trembling and begging, then giving me exactly what I needed. When he finally made me completely his, claiming me with a gentleness that brought tears to my eyes, I understood what it meant to belong to someone so completely that nothing else mattered. "I love you," he whispered against my hair afterward, holding me close, our bodies still tangled together. I know it's too soon, too fast, too crazy. But I love you, Emma Hartley. I think I loved you from the moment you tried to save that champagne bottle instead of yourself. The confession made my heart stutter and soar. I love you too. I breathed, and saying it made it real, made it true, made it forever. We fell asleep wrapped around each other, his arm a protective band around my waist, his heartbeat steady against my back, the city lights casting shadows across his bedroom floor. 3 months later, I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. Dante's side of the bed was empty but still warm. He'd been up for hours, probably, handling business from his home office before I stirred. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of adjustment and change. I'd moved into the penthouse after 2 weeks, when Dante had simply announced that having me in that shabby apartment was unacceptable. I'd kept my job at Aurelio's despite his protests, though now I only worked 3 nights a week and always with Antonio or another guard somewhere nearby. I'd started online classes, paid for by Dante before I could argue, studying business management because I wanted to understand his world better, wanted to be a true partner rather than just something to protect. It hadn't all been easy. There were nights when Dante came home with blood on his hands and darkness in his eyes, when he disappeared into his office and wouldn't speak for hours. There were mornings when I woke to find new security protocols in place, new guards shadowing my movements, evidence that some new threat had emerged in the night. But there were also moments of unexpected tenderness, Dante teaching me Italian in bed, his patient correction of my terrible pronunciation. Sunday mornings spent cooking together, his hands guiding mine as he showed me how his grandmother had made pasta. Quiet evenings when he'd read while I studied, his hand absently playing with my hair, both of us simply existing in each other's presence. I'd met his inner circle. Antonio I already knew, but also Marco the driver, and Luca who handled his financial operations, and even his cousin Gabriella who'd flown in from Sicily and immediately adopted me as a sister. I'd learned the rules of his world, the hierarchies and codes and unspoken languages that governed the criminal empire he controlled. And I'd learned what it meant to be loved by Dante Caruso, completely, possessively, with a devotion that bordered on obsession. He was jealous and overprotective to the point of insanity, but he also worshipped me in ways I'd never imagined possible. Every morning I woke to fresh flowers on the nightstand. Every day brought some small gift. A book I'd mentioned wanting, a piece of jewelry he'd seen and thought of me, a reservation at a restaurant I'd said I wanted to try. He'd given me everything I'd never known I needed: security, comfort, purpose, and a love so intense it sometimes scared me with its ferocity. I padded into the kitchen wearing one of his shirts, my standard morning uniform now, and found him at the stove, shirtless in sleep pants, making what smelled like his attempt at pancakes. The domesticity of it made my heart swell. "Morning," I said, wrapping my arms around him from behind, pressing my cheek against the warm skin of his back. "Buongiorno, dolcezza." He turned in my arms, spatula still in hand, and kissed me thoroughly. "Sleep well?" "Always do when you're there." I glanced at the pan, where something that might have been a pancake was slowly burning. "You're terrible at this, you know. I'm excellent at many things," he said with mock offense. "Cooking is simply not one of them." I laughed, pushing him aside gently and rescuing the pancake before it became completely inedible. "Sit. Let me do this before you burn down your own kitchen." He obeyed with a grin, perching on one of the bar stools and watching me work with that intense focus he brought to everything. "I have something to tell you," he said after a moment, his tone shifting to something more serious. My hands stilled on the spatula. "What?" "The situation with the Morettis, the family that's been pushing into my territory, it's coming to a head. There's going to be a meeting next week. A negotiation." I turned to face him fully. "Is it dangerous?" "Everything I do is dangerous, amore." "But yes, this more than most. They've been making moves, testing boundaries. I need to respond decisively." Fear spiked through me, but I pushed it down. This was his world, and I'd chosen to be part of it. "What do you need from me?" Pride flickered in his eyes. "I need you to stay with Gabriella during the meeting. She has a safe house outside the city." Antonio and half my security team will be with you. You're that worried? I'm always worried when it comes to you. He reached out, pulling me between his knees, his hands settling on my hips. You're my weakness, Emma. The only thing in this world that could bring me to my knees. Which means you're also the most valuable target my enemies have. I cupped his face, feeling the rough stubble beneath my palms. Then be careful. Come back to me. Always. He pressed a kiss to my palm. I'll always come back to you. You're my reason for everything now. For building an empire. For consolidating power. For making sure I'm strong enough that no one dares touch what's mine. And after this meeting? After you deal with the Morettis? His smile turned predatory. After we expand. I'm taking over their operations, their territories, their assets. By the end of the year, I'll control everything from the waterfront to the industrial district, and it's all for you, Emma. Building something strong enough, powerful enough, that you'll never have to be afraid again. The intensity of his ambition should have frightened me, but instead I felt something else. Pride, belonging, the knowledge that this man would quite literally burn the world down to keep me safe. I love you, I said simply. I love you more. He pulled me down for another kiss, this one deeper, more claiming. Now finish making breakfast before I forget about food entirely and take you back to bed. I laughed against his lips, pushing him away playfully. Behave. You need to eat something other than me. Impossible woman, he muttered. But his eyes were warm with affection. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Dante spent long hours in meetings, his phone constantly ringing, his security team mobilizing for whatever was coming. I packed a bag for my stay at Gabriella's safe house, trying not to think about all the things that could go wrong, trying to trust that Dante knew what he was doing. The night before the meeting, he made love to me with a desperation that scared me, like he was trying to memorize every inch of my body, every sound I made, every way I responded to his touch. Afterward, we lay tangled together, and I felt the tension radiating from his body despite his attempts to hide it. Talk to me, I said softly, my fingers tracing the tattoo on his ribs, a phoenix rising from flames, symbolic of his rise to power after his father's death. I'm afraid, he admitted quietly. Not of the meeting, not of the Morettis, but of losing you, of something going wrong and you getting caught in the crossfire. Of this world I've dragged you into destroying the one good thing I've ever had. I shifted to look at him, seeing the vulnerability in his dark eyes. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose this. I chose you. And I'm not going anywhere, Dante Caruso. You're stuck with me. His hand came up, cupping my jaw. Promise me something. Anything. If something happens to me, don't. I pressed my fingers to his lips, cutting off the words. Don't you dare talk like that. Emma. He pulled my hand away, his grip gentle but firm. I need you to hear this. If something happens to me, Antonio has instructions. You'll be taken care of, protected, given everything you need. But more than that, he paused, his thumb tracing my bottom lip. I need you to live, fully, completely, find happiness again. Don't let my world destroy your light. Tears burned behind my eyes. Nothing's going to happen to you. But if it does, then I'll burn the world down to avenge you, I interrupted fiercely. Because that's what you've taught me, Dante. That love is worth fighting for. That some things are worth any risk, any danger, any cost. He stared at me for a long moment, something raw and powerful moving across his face. How did I get so lucky? He whispered. We both got lucky. I kissed him softly. Now stop talking about worst-case scenarios and tell me about best-case ones. Tell me about after. Tell me about the future. So he did. He painted pictures with words of traveling to Sicily together, of showing me where his family came from, of eventually stepping back from the violent side of his operations, focusing on the legitimate businesses, building something that wouldn't require constant bloodshed, of buying a house in the countryside where we could have privacy and peace, of marriage, children, a life that somehow balanced the darkness of his world with the light I brought to it. I want everything with you, he said finally. Every possible future, every dream, everything. Then come back to me tomorrow, I whispered. and we'll start making those dreams real. The meeting day arrived with crystalline clarity. One of those perfect autumn days that felt like a lie against the tension thrumming through the penthouse. Antonio came to collect me at noon, his expression professionally neutral, but I saw the concern in his eyes. "Take care of him," I told Antonio before I left, gripping his arm. "With my life," Antonio promised. "And you stay put at the safe house. No arguments, no risks." "No arguments," I agreed, though my heart felt like it was being ripped from my chest with every step away from Dante. Gabriella's safe house turned out to be a beautiful villa, 30 minutes outside the city, surrounded by walls and guards and every security measure imaginable. Gabriella herself was a force of nature, petite and beautiful, but with the same steel in her spine that ran through Dante's blood. "He'll be fine," she assured me, pouring wine even though it was barely afternoon. "My cousin is many things, but stupid isn't one of them. He's been planning this for months. Then why am I so scared? Because you love him." She raised her glass. "Welcome to loving a man like Dante. The fear never goes away. You just learn to live with it." The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Gabriella and I tried to distract ourselves, cooking, watching movies, talking about everything except what was happening in the city. But my phone stayed clutched in my hand, waiting for word, for anything. At 7 o'clock, it finally rang. "Antonio." "We're coming to you," he said without preamble. "Be ready to move in 5 minutes. What happened? Is Dante—" "He's fine. Meeting went as planned. But there's been a development. I'll explain when we get there." He hung up before I could ask more questions, and I turned to find Gabriella already moving, gathering weapons I hadn't known she had, her entire demeanor shifting from friendly cousin to soldier. "What's happening?" I asked, panic rising. "I don't know yet, but if Antonio's moving you, there's a reason." She handed me a jacket. "Stay close to me. Do exactly what I say. Understand?" I nodded, my heart hammering against my ribs. 5 minutes later, the sound of vehicles approaching made every guard in the house mobilize. But it was Antonio who came through the door, followed by, "Dante!" I ran to him, and he caught me, his arms crushing me against his chest. I'm fine, amore." He pulled back enough to cut my face, his eyes searching mine. "But we need to go. Now." "What happened?" "The Morettis agreed to my terms. They're ceding territory, pulling back their operations. But someone leaked the meeting location to the federales. We have 30 minutes, maybe less, before they raid the building. I need you somewhere completely clean, somewhere that can't be connected to me if this goes wrong." My blood ran cold. "Are you in trouble?" "Not if I handle this right." He was already moving, pulling me toward the door where more vehicles waited. "I'm taking you to a property outside my name. Something that's completely off the books. You'll stay there until this blows over. And you? I'll handle the federales. Make sure there's nothing to find, nothing they can use. But I need to know you're safe first." We piled into the SUV, Dante, me, Antonio, and 2 other guards I recognized from the penthouse. Dante kept me pressed against his side, his arm an iron band around my waist, his lips pressing constant kisses to my temple like he couldn't help himself. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm sorry you have to live like this. Running, hiding, always looking over your shoulder. I'm not." I turned to look at him, seeing the guilt and fear in his eyes. "I'm exactly where I want to be, with you. No matter what that means." His expression cracked, vulnerability showing through. "I don't deserve you. Too bad. You're stuck with me." He kissed me then, desperate and claiming and full of unspoken promises, when he pulled back. His eyes had hardened with resolve. "After tonight, things change. I'm getting out of the operations that draw federal attention, keeping the legitimate businesses, cleaning up the rest. I'm not losing you because I was too greedy or too reckless to know when to step back. You'd do that? Give up that much power? For you?" His hand came up, cupping my jaw. "I'd give up everything. Power means nothing if I don't have you to share it with." We arrived at a cottage I'd never seen before. Small, isolated, surrounded by woods, completely unlike everything else in Dante's empire. Antonio and the guards swept it first, confirming it was secure, before Dante led me inside. "You'll stay here tonight," he said, already hating it, hating leaving me. Tomorrow, if everything's clear, I'll come get you. If not, you'll come for me anyway, I interrupted. Because that's what you do. You always come back. Always, he agreed, pulling me close one more time. I love you, Emma. More than power, more than money, more than anything in this world. You're my purpose now. My reason. I love you too. I clutched at his shirt, not wanting to let go. Be safe. Be smart. Come back to me. I will. One last kiss, this one achingly tender. I'll always come back to you. He left with Antonio and the guards, leaving 2 different men I didn't recognize to watch over me. The cottage felt too empty without him, too quiet, and I paced the floors as night fell, waiting, hoping, praying that everything would be okay. My phone buzzed at midnight, all clear. Feds found nothing. Coming to get you at dawn. Get some sleep, Amore. Tomorrow, we start our new life. I read the message 3 times, relief flooding through me so intensely my legs gave out. I sank onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. Tears of relief, of joy, of gratitude that he was safe, that we were safe, that somehow we'd survived another crisis. Sleep was impossible, but I tried, curling up on the couch, hugging one of the throw pillows like it could substitute for Dante's warmth. When dawn finally broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I heard the sound of an approaching vehicle. I was at the door before the guards could stop me, flinging it open to see Dante climbing out of the SUV, looking exhausted but whole, his eyes finding mine immediately. Emma! I launched myself at him, and he caught me easily, spinning us both, his face buried in my hair. It's over, he breathed. The Morettis are dealt with. The feds have nothing. We're safe. We're safe, I repeated, the words feeling like a miracle. He set me down gently, his hands framing my face. I meant what I said last night. Things are going to change. I'm stepping back from the dangerous operations, focusing on legitimate business. I want a life with you, Emma, a real life. Not one where we're constantly running or hiding or looking over our shoulders. Are you sure? This is your empire. You're my empire now, he interrupted. Everything else is just details. 6 months later, the sunset painted the Sicilian sky in impossible colors as I stood on the terrace of the villa Dante had bought for us, our home away from the city, away from the business, away from everything except each other. True to his word, Dante had restructured his operations. He'd kept the legitimate businesses, restaurants, import-export companies, real estate holdings, and quietly divested from everything else. Some of his former associates had been angry, had called him weak, had tried to move against him. They'd learned quickly that stepping back didn't mean Dante Caruso had become harmless. It just meant he was more selective about when and how he used his power. The villa had become our sanctuary, a place where Dante could be just a man, not a boss, where I could be just his wife. We'd married 2 months ago in a small ceremony with only close family and friends, where we could build a life that balanced both our worlds. I heard his footsteps behind me, felt his arms wrap around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? He asked. How much has changed? I said honestly. A year ago, I was invisible, working myself to death, convinced I'd never have more than survival. And now? I turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd changed everything, who'd seen me when I was invisible, who'd protected me when I was vulnerable, who'd loved me with an intensity that had transformed both our lives. Now I have everything, I said simply. You. This life. A future that's more than I ever dreamed possible. His smile was pure warmth. Good. Because I have something else to give you. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a key. The apartment building where you used to live? I bought it. I stared at him, confusion warring with curiosity. Why? Because I'm renovating it, turning it into affordable housing with on-site childcare and job training programs. I want to help people like you were. People who are working 3 jobs just to survive, who deserve better, but don't know how to get there. His eyes held mine. You taught me what it means to have nothing, Now I want to use everything I have to make sure fewer people have to live that way. Tears blurred my vision. Dante, you made me better, Emma. Made me want to be better. This is just the beginning. I kissed him through my tears, pouring everything I felt into it. Love and gratitude and joy and hope for the future we were building together. When we finally pulled apart, Dante's hand moved to rest on my still flat stomach, his eyes questioning. I'd been waiting for the right moment to tell him. And this, standing on our terrace at sunset, talking about the future, felt perfect. I'm pregnant, I said softly. His expression transformed, shock bleeding into joy so pure it took my breath away. We're having a baby. I covered his hand with mine. You're going to be a father, Dante Caruso. He dropped to his knees right there on the terrace, his arms wrapping around my waist, his face pressed against my stomach. I'm going to be a father, he repeated, his voice rough with emotion. We're going to have a family. We are, I confirmed, running my fingers through his hair, our own little empire. He looked up at me, tears tracking down his cheeks. This dangerous, powerful man reduced to vulnerability by the promise of our child. I love you. God, Emma. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too. I pulled him to his feet, into my arms, holding him as tightly as he held me. And our baby is going to be so loved, so protected, so wanted. Always, he promised. Both of you. Always. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in twilight, and I stood wrapped in Dante's arms, feeling the steady beat of his heart against mine, knowing that somehow, against all odds, against all logic, we'd found our happy ending. Not the fairy tale kind where everything was perfect and easy, but the real kind, where two broken people found each other and built something beautiful from the pieces. Where a girl who'd never been kissed learned what it meant to be loved completely. Where a man who'd lived in darkness found his light. What are you thinking now? Dante asked, his lips brushing my temple. That I'd do it all again, I said honestly. Every moment, every risk, every terrifying step that brought me here, to you, to us, to this. Even the stumble that started it all? I laughed, remembering that night at Aurelio's, when I'd caught my heel and fallen into his arms. Especially the stumble, best accident of my life. Mine too, Dolcezza. He turned me to face him, his eyes holding mine with that same intensity that had captured me from the beginning. Mine too. He kissed me as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, and I kissed him back, knowing that this, us, together, building a life and a family and a future, this was everything I'd ever needed, and more than I'd ever dared to dream. The invisible girl had been seen. The unloved girl had been claimed, and the girl who'd never been kissed had learned that sometimes, when you take a chance on falling, someone extraordinary catches you and holds